Hello everyone, and welcome to the 5th episode of the PLUSH ROBOT podcast. My name is Zack, and we have a very special episode tonight. We are going to be diving into the deep, dark rabbit hole that is r/nosleep, as well as dedicating the other half to this podcast to reading some of the wildest and craziest conspiracy theories out there and getting my reaction to them all. So, without further ado, we're going to jump into some spooky stuff right now. This first story is entitled, Residents of Ohio, Please Consider Relocating. If you live near the southern bank of the Ohio River, you should count your lucky blessings that you aren't on the other side. Having lived in Ohio for a year myself, I can name some of the obvious downsides. The awful winters are bad, but the summers manage to one-up them. I can't believe that the mosquitoes are even worse than they were back home. But the worst things in Ohio aren't natural. And I'm not talking about the small cults that pretend to be Protestant churches. They're just a side effect. The native burial sites are not as bad as some people make them out to be either. No matter which part of the state you live in, you are not spared from the entity. Everyone stuck in Ohio should take this post as a wake-up call. You need to move to another state. Any state will do. Nothing comes as close to being as bad as this. If you don't instinctively know what I mean, I'll provide more context. In my profession, there are objects that we call reagents. There are various shamans, priests, and spiritualists who know how to make one. I'm sure if you ask around enough, you'll eventually stumble across someone who knows the proper prayers and rituals to construct a reagent. Although I wouldn't go around trying. Most of them are pretty tight-lipped about it, and it can take years of searching before one agrees to make one for you. And even then, it'll probably cost north of 6 figures and take multiple years to prepare. I'm lucky. I got mine when my mentor retired. She's the one that sent me to Ohio. She always wanted to investigate this place, but never managed to make the great trip west. The reagent she had looks like a small carving of a duck, but it hums in your head as long as you hold it in your hand. Usually, the tune is pleasant and low in both volume and register. In a place with moderate energies, like a church or a graveyard, the volume increases. When you go to a place with an evil character, the tone of the hum becomes more and more piercing. If you don't have a fresh murder site nearby, most government buildings give you an effect like this. Well, when I arrived in Cleveland, I already noticed that the duck was off. No matter where in the city I went, the tone was sharper and louder than I expected. I immediately assumed that this was it. The center of the anomaly had to be located here. But no matter how much time I spent in Cleveland, the tone never got louder. It was pretty bad, so I assumed that there was either something wrong with the reagent or there had been a specific tragedy relatively recent that affected the whole city. I couldn't really follow up on it more, though. Well, other things were distracting me at the time. I could only stay in Cleveland for a few days. I spent the next 3 weeks in New York, but that's another story. After that, business had been included. I returned to Ohio. This time, I arrived in Columbus to investigate that area. To my shock, the humming got even higher and louder. Usually the only place where you hear something like this is the center of a paranormal incident, or an old battlefield that housed a particularly brutal conflict. I personally only experienced it as ambient noise at major sites of the Northern Crusades. I spent a few days investigating Columbus, and that's when the dread started to set in. The source wasn't located in Columbus. Whatever was causing all this was powerful enough to cover the entirety of the state. I assumed that whatever it was, it had to be near Dayton, so that was my next stop. And sadly, I happened to be right. What I wrote in my diary that day still haunts me. The humming here was like something you only hear in the ruins of a concentration camp, except it was covering the entire city. And finally, I found the source. The noise increased the closer I got to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. When I was 1,000 yards away, it was already head-splitting. When I got close enough to get a good look through the fence, I got a migraine that lasted for a week. I've done some follow-ups in and around the state to check how bad it is everywhere else. It's nearly as bad as it is in most of Dayton, all the way to Toledo. However, it rapidly gets better if you go to the west of Dayton. When you cross the Ohio River, it disappears completely. From my past experiences, the river part was expected, but I still can't explain why everything westward is spared. And everyone feels it. Why do you think Dayton is the heroin den of the country? Sure, that happens to be the popular drug right now, but if you're stuck anywhere near an entity this powerful, you need to ease the constant psychic assault somehow. And for those who don't fancy heroin, joining a vaguely Christian cult is a solid second best option. All of them know that hell is real because they're already living in the closest thing to it. I'm leaving Ohio tomorrow, hopefully for good. The investigation I conducted didn't prove to be fruitful. The only thing I achieved was spending my year going from one awful accident to the next. Now I understand why all the Americans in my profession told me I should just abandon Ohio. So this is my warning to everyone who lives here. You live in an evil place. If you want to live a happy life, leave and never come back. I know for sure that I'll never be returning. And we move on to story number 2. And looking over this one seems really interesting. This one's entitled, "The Sun's Not Coming Up." January 3rd. The sun's not coming up. The sun's not coming up. I can't deal with this. School's starting Monday. How am I supposed to get to class when it's so dark you can't see your hand 3 inches in front of your face? When I got up, I figured it was just because it was winter, you know? The sun goes down and stays down longer when it's cold. But I knew something was up by noon. The sun should have been up by now, starting to freak me out. Neighbors have come by asking me for some things that they don't want to run to the store for, ignoring the elephant in the room that there's just no fucking sun. Apparently, the darkness gets even worse when you try to get out of the neighborhood. It's best to just stay here until all this blows over, while pretending it's not happening at all. Dad was sleeping on the couch this morning. I think he and Mom got into another fight. They're not talking, and Mom's been crying, even though she does her best to hide it. God, it's bad enough that the world might be ending. I don't have time to worry about my parents' failing marriage. January 4th. The streetlights went out, haven't come back on. Outside now looks like Satan's winter wonderland, with all the snow and it being so dark. I can see other houses across the street, the lights shining through the window like beacons in the night. The only reason I can make out anything in my yard is from the light shining from my living room window. Mom and Dad aren't talking. Jesus Christ, you could cut the tension with a knife. I really wish I could go outside to smoke, but I swear Dad had a stroke when he saw me open the back door. I don't know what he expects me to go to school if I can't even go out to the back porch to get some air, but whatever. For now, I'm just cracking the window in my bedroom, doing what I can to waft the smoke out of there. I'm 16. I can make my own decisions. January 7th. Okay, I guess I'm not going to school. Sun's still not up. Weekend's just been as boring as shit, just watching the outdoors getting darker, if that's even possible. I even started to get ready before I realized, what the hell am I doing? I went downstairs to ask if I can stay home. My dad gave me his approval and said I can stay home for as long as it stays dark. First time we really acknowledge how absolutely bizarre that is. And it's the only acknowledgement. I tried turning on the TV to see if there's anything on the news about this, but all I got was static. Couldn't even connect to any local channels. It's all snow. Phone's dead too. I tried calling Hila and Lydia and got nothing. Not even a busy signal. It worked last night when I talked with Lydia. She just lives a few blocks away and it's dark there too. Hila lives in the city though, not Bartonville. And apparently the sun is fine there. She said she'd come over today to see if I'm still making up bullshit. It's not bullshit. The sun's gone, and it's showing no sign of coming back. January 8th. It's not just the sun disappearing. Lights are going out. It started with the kitchen. I went down and tried flicking the light and got nothing. I yelled for Dad and said the kitchen bulb burned out, and he went pale. He switched it, and all I heard was hear him swear for the first time in my life when it still didn't work. I tried to tell him to check the breaker, but he was clearly losing his shit. By the time Mom came in, he was babbling nonsense about the lights being taken away, and my mom had to help him lie down. I wonder if this has anything to do with why he was at work late for the last few weeks. I don't know what he works on, but I'm starting to go a little stir-crazy, and it's making me paranoid. Hila never showed up yesterday. I stayed up until midnight and she never showed. Maybe she just got turned around, or maybe she forgot. She's like that. I bet she forgot. January 9th. Half the house is stuck in the dark now, including my bedroom, but that's not the worst of it. Watching the street is the only form of entertainment I have other than reading, and I'm getting too antsy to focus on that. I cracked the window while I street watched, and then I heard it. For the last few days, all I've heard while I cracked the window is wind. Today, I heard whispers. Yes, I thought maybe I'd finally cracked and was hearing things, but I pressed my head against the screen to listen better. It was then I heard the clack of something, like claws climbing up the side of the house. I yanked my head back just in time to see those claws land on the sill. I was frozen when that thing hauled itself up to my eye level. It was probably my height, maybe a bit bigger, pure black with tufts of hair or fur coming from the top of its head and shoulders. It didn't have any facial features other than these large pointed ears and bright red eyes. Eyes bigger than my balled up fist. It blinked a few times like he was just as surprised to see me as well. His claws sliced through the screen as I stared at it. I had to be going crazy, right? Its enormous hand groped around my desk before landing on my last pack of cigarettes. It yanked them back, waved them in my face, and then dropped out of sight with a chittering madman's sound. I screamed as loud as I could before slamming the window down. My dad came in, and when I told him what I saw, he began to cry, just crumpled into a ball on the floor and began sobbing. I had to tuck him into bed. I asked Mom what was wrong with him, but she couldn't answer me. All she knew for sure is that he came back late, January 2nd, looking paranoid as all hell and smelling like someone else's perfume. I don't know what's worse, the fact that my dad is apparently having an affair, or how calmly my mom said that. Apparently, she'd been onto him for months, and it had been likely going on for years. Years. It was only that night she caught him. God, I wish I could just go back to my treehouse and hide out for a bit, but I can't imagine leaving this house right now. Not with those things out there that laugh and whisper, even though they don't have mouths. January 10th. The darkness took a house last night. The chittering from those freaks was so loud it woke me up. We crowded in front of the living room window and watched as dozens, maybe even 100 of those monsters surrounded the house across the street. Windows were busted in, the door was ripped off from the hinges, and they flooded inside. The Kinney started screaming seconds after they got in. They screamed for what felt like ages, and all we could do was stand there and watch. Dad bolted the house after that. extinguishing every candle, turning off any lights we still had that worked. He's sure that they were attracted to the light. I don't get it, honestly, but I'm not going to argue with the guy who's clearly 2 steps away from a mental breakdown. The Kinneys did have the most lights on still. My thighs are going to be covered in bruises with how I keep bumping into everything every few steps. I can only use my flashlight to write in my diary. I have to leave it in the dark the rest of the time. All I can do is just watch the darkness outside the window. January 11th. 2 more houses were ripped to pieces during the night. Maybe the night. I can't tell anymore. I count days by sleeps now, and now there's not much else to do but sleep. I am getting better at seeing in the dark, though, although all there is to see isn't great. The monsters just took the Kinneys' house down. There's nothing left but a pile of wood. The lots in Jarvis's house are also destroyed. In the wreckage, I can sometimes see dark shapes moving around them. More monsters, probably. I wish I could fucking see Lydia's house, but it's too far away. I hope she's okay. It's clear my dad prepped for being here for a long time, though. We have enough canned food to last until the end of the century. Something on that last normal night spooked him. And although he and my mom are clearly going to split the moment they can, he still cares about us, even if he did betray us. I'm too tired to be angry, and too scared. Maybe turning the lights off was the right choice, but who fucking knows? January 12th. Rise Gill. That's the name of Dad's other woman, or in this case, man. Boy, this just couldn't be easy, could it? I was in the living room watching the snow when I saw a dark shape dart across the lawn. I almost screamed for my dad when I heard someone run to the door, but then I heard a voice. God, please let me in. I don't know what made me turn the knob, but the guy nearly flattened me in his panic to get inside. The side of his face is all raked up from something's claws, and right after I closed the door, I heard something else slam against it, followed by an angered scream. That thing was right on his heels, and I didn't even see it. My dad admitted it all to my mom in the other room, when Rise practically fell into my dad's arms, sobbing about how they just weren't seeing things. Mom came out after a few minutes alone, dry-eyed and holding a first aid kit. She patched up Rye's face, and while Rise explained what had been happening all over the block, the monsters, or shadows as he called them, are in fact attracted to the light. Dad was right. They also like heat. Rise saw a few of them curled up around a burning house like a bunch of dogs in front of a fireplace. They didn't bring the dark, though. The other thing did. Dad and Rise refused to explain further, but apparently that night they saw something. Something unknown. I'm praying for the sun's return soon. Dad turned the heat off and we're all bundling up. January 13th. I like Rise. That sounds so bad. I know he's the guy that's ruining everything for my parents, but he's super nice. He's helping board up the windows so as little light and heat escapes, but leaves peepholes for me to keep an eye out. He's trying to keep the mood up by bringing up his travel stories. Apparently he went all over Europe for summer vacation after he graduated. If I'm ever interested, he could recommend the best spots, apparently. I'll take it anywhere to get out of this damn darkness. I think even Mom likes Rise. Or at least is playing nice. There's no room to be a dick while the world's potentially ending. And Dad, he looks happy when he's with Rise. Happier than he ever looked with my mom. Fuck it, if I keep crying all over my diary, I'm gonna make the ink bleed. I can practically see in the dark like a cat now. Although Rise gave me plenty of new batteries for my flashlight, so my handwriting's actually readable. January 14th. The monster that stole my cigarettes came back. I know it was him because he made the butts into a creepy necklace. Dickhole, I could use a smoke. He was just peering through the slats of my window's barricade, tapping on the glass with his claws and making more weird warbling sounds. Rise showed me his gun. He says if the monster tries busting through, he'll make sure to put it down. I've never felt so relieved. In the meantime, I'm calling it Nick, short for nicotine, and I'm sleeping in my parents' room. Well, Mom's room. Dad and Rise are occupying a room in the basement. I wish they'd just tell us what they saw that night. January 15. Nicotine, fuck. I don't even know how. I just heard Rise and Dad scream and came down to the basement to find Dad bleeding everywhere and Rise trying to put a bullet in Nick's head. He missed twice and ended up pegging it in the arm once. It bolted back long enough for Rise and I to drag Dad to the main floor and to shut the door. Nick is stuck in the basement and he can't get up here. But I do hear him pacing up and down the stairs. Dad's really fucked up. Mom started praying when she was patching up his neck. He looks super pale still, and he's going in and out of consciousness. Rise is holding onto his hand, and he's bawling his eyes out. I think my dad's dying. January 16th. Dad's dead. He passed some time. Well, don't know really when. Clocks have all stopped and haven't been going for days. It's like time's not even real anymore. It's just an eternal night until we all die. I peered out the window to see the front yard's got a few more bodies in it, all pretty badly shredded, but I would recognize Lydia's hot pink coat anywhere. I think the rest of the bodies are her family, but I can't tell. Won't be able to, probably, even if I could get up close to them. We're all going to die. Mom's just laying in bed, and Rise is just counting his bullets in between his sniffles. All I need to know is that he has more than 3. January 17th. After we stashed Dad's body in the office, Rise sat both Mom and I down and told us what happened. They met by the old state hospital, planning on going for a drive in Dad's car while leaving Rise stashed around there. Dad never once worked late in his life, which for some reason, for all the things that tick me off, he always got on my case whenever I skipped a class or two, and all this time he was practically gunning it from where I go to work to meet his boyfriend. At sunset, they saw the monsters. 2 of them, not counting the shadows that surrounded the one that almost looked human, except he was too tall and too pale, and had eyes as black as night. The other one was hunched over, and some sort of drooling creature with a maw not big enough for all its teeth. But it was clear these 2 creatures were not friends. The king, that's what Rise is calling the one with the shadows, apparently attacked the first, but the beast fought back. It was when the sky began to grow dark, despite the sun still sitting on the horizon. They watched the sky grow black while the creatures continued to fight. They got the hell out of there before it became too dark, both going home and telling each other that they'd been drugged. That was the only explanation of what unexplainable shit they've seen. But they both still found themselves preparing. Dad picking up all that canned food, and Rise digging that gun out of storage and making sure that he had ammo. This had nothing to do with us. The king and the beast just put us in the middle of their shitfest, and we're all going to die because of it. January 18th. Mom's going to kill herself. Rise and I aren't going to stop her. There's not going to be an end to this night. Mom knows this. The sun's never coming back. Nick is still in the basement, pacing up and down those damn steps, waiting for its friends to show up so they can kill us all, rip us from limb to limb. Rise is going to make his last stand when that happens, but Mom can't bring herself to wait for the sun anymore. She sat me down and told me how much I mean to her, that she still loves Dad even if he really, really hurt her, that she won't think badly of me if I'm not ready to end it. I'm not, but I'm just glad she's gonna take pills and go peacefully, go to sleep instead of taking Rye's offer to use his gun. I'm not sure if I could take it if I heard the gun go off. I'm such a coward. I should be joining her right now, but I'm too scared to die. I'm only 16. I don't want to die. January 19th. This will be my last entry. Nick and the others broke through last night, right through the basement door. Rise took out a lot of them, but I'm not sure if he's still alive since I'm not hearing any gunshots anymore. I'm barred up in my room. I keep getting whiffs of my parents' rotting bodies and it makes me want to puke. Why I didn't go with Mom yesterday? I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I can hear them in the hall. They're looking for me. They can feel my warmth, even if my fingers feel numb and my teeth can't stop chattering. I can hear them whispering my name. I'm gonna make a break for it out my window. I don't have a doubt that I'll freeze to death, but I'll take that over being ripped to pieces. I hear it's quite nice freezing to death. You just sort of go to sleep. Goodbye. I found this in the attic of a home I'm restoring. There was a horrible blizzard a few decades back that destroyed a fuck ton of homes, but nothing like this. Maybe it's a joke. Maybe it's some creative writing homework at the beginning of a novel. All I can say is last night the sun went down, but it hasn't come back yet this morning. Oh my goodness, that one was packed full of a dire situation. Oh my goodness. All right, and this is going to be the last No Sleep story I read. This one is entitled, Don't Take the Long Way. I was driving home from work last night when I saw something that shook me to my core. Something nearly impossible to do. I tend to take pride in how hard it is to startle or shock me, and that I'm not particularly afraid of anything. I usually take a particular route home, one that's pretty well lit and is fairly straight shot home. Since I always drive to and from work, it's not so much of a safety precaution as it is a way of me getting home quickly while fleeing less alone. The quickest way home was to go through the city and straight through the other side of the suburb, just outside city limits. Tonight, though, I found myself needing to take a longer than normal drive to relax before I can go home and have dinner. Thus, I made the horrible decision to take a longer route. This different route took me around both the city and the suburb. This longer route turned out to be much darker than the route I normally took and was far more winding. I felt a knot forming in the pit of my stomach and knew something was wrong. Was I about to roll up on something that I was never meant to see? Was I being followed? I looked in the rear view, but I couldn't see anything. So I just kept going. The knot in my stomach kept growing, though, until suddenly, a minute or so after I had started feeling uneasy, my car was flooded by headlights coming from a vehicle behind me. I looked back in my rearview mirror again to see a truck behind me, its high beams on. I sped up a little and they did too. I tried slowing down a bit, thinking maybe they wanted to pass me, and they slowed down too, staying behind me instead of passing. I was starting to get really nervous. I started thinking about where I might be able to pull over, places where there had been people I can go to help, and I remembered a gas station about a mile ahead. Checking to be sure that there weren't any other cars on the road aside from my own, and the truck was still on my tail. I slowly sped up to 90 and didn't slow down until I had flown into the gas station's parking lot. The truck pulled in after me, and I ran to the door of the station. I grabbed the door handle and yanked, but nothing happened. I tried again to no avail. I was cornered with no decent way of escaping. The best bet I had was to show my face to the camera and to stay in the sights of the security cameras for as long as possible, giving the cameras a good shot of recording whatever happened at possible. I whipped my phone out and called the police. I knew they would take a while to get to the gas station, but at least they might find my dead body if I called now. For some reason, though, they never picked up. The driver of the truck revved its engines a couple of times before slamming the gas pedal to the floor and driving at me as quickly as they could. I ducked and was just barely able to flatten myself enough to be able to squeeze under the truck as it drove over me, rolling out of the way as it turned, missing the rear passenger side tire before it jumped the curb. I ran back to my car and nearly cried with relief when I found the driver's door still unlocked. I hopped in and started the car, tearing out of the gas station parking lot. I didn't want to go straight home with this creep following me, but I wasn't sure where else to go. After driving a few miles, I realized the near police station and decided to pull into their parking lot. I figured that was worst case scenario. I could jump out of my car and run to the station for help. Best case scenario, he would just see where I just pulled in and I decided to keep going. Luckily, he kept going. I waited for a few minutes to be sure he didn't loop back around before heading home. It took several hours for me to fall asleep that night, and when I did, I woke up from terrible nightmares about being murdered in various ways. Be careful when you're driving, folks. It may not be as safe as you think. Well, there we have it. Those are 3 spooktacular stories, and now it's time for us to dive into some conspiracy theories. All right, and welcome to the conspiracy half of this episode of Plush Robot. We are going to be diving into r/conspiracy theories, and we're going to scroll through, and I'm going to be reacting to some of these. Let's see here. 30 years of insects disappearing. Can you be more specific? Oh my god. So this person just posted the question, 30 years of insects disappearing without providing any context. Okay, that's kind of vague. Okay, 30 years of insects have disappeared. Okay, that's strange. We need more bug summoners. That's the way to solve that issue. Let's see here. Here's a good one. Welcome to Earth, the prison planet. Earth might be a planet meant for prisoners. What happens when one alien species loses a war against another alien species? They get punished. And what's a worse punishment than having to start over to scratch on a completely foreign planet? I believe we humans were once part of a great nation, maybe not united, but probably equal. This great nation did not start on Earth, but instead started far away out of the Milky Way. Just like we have wars on our simple planet, I think we were at war with another alien species and we lost. Our opponents decided to force us to start over on a planet called Earth, in a solar system with life out on 9 planets. They decided to give us a fighting chance to save our species, and we thrived. I don't think we're the only species of alien on this planet either. Every animal here has lost a war. They're just so much less developed than we were, that they were incapable of developing as we humans have. The sightings of UFOs and aliens on Earth are real, and they're not here to study us or anything like that. They're here to deliver a new prisoner. Very interesting to note that, because when it comes to anything alien related, whenever I watch alien shows, I'm a total nut for that, but I do believe in the paranormal and UFO activity. I believe there are other beings out there that are not human, that keep tabs on us. I really do think that, because I believe that there is something more than just this physical Earth. And then let's take a look here. Alright, this next one looks like an image. And it just shows an image of the Apple logo, the Pepsi logo, the Facebook logo, and the McDonald's logo. And this looks like an Instagram post where it says, the CEO of Pepsi was recorded saying he'd never let his family touch any of their products. Mark Zuckerberg puts tape over his laptop's camera and microphone. Steve Jobs banned his kids from using the iPad. Bill Gates strictly limited his children's technology use. And the CEO of McDonald's claims he doesn't even eat his own company's food. Okay, that one is a little freaky right there. I mean, I know people, putting tape over their cameras because of the whole, NSA thing, which, they're collecting your metadata and storing it in some facility in Utah. But Steve Jobs banning his kid from using the iPad, that's... Oh, man. And I'm reading this off my iPad, so clearly I don't know something that they know. Alright, I'm going to keep the music to a minimum, but this next one is an all movie posters look-alike conspiracy. And it's a YouTube video posted on the subreddit.
Thank you. Have you ever really studied the way movie posters look nowadays? See any similarities?
Okay.
Well, in this video, we'll study the theory about all movie posters looking the same. My big question is, are the movie posters looking alike based on psychology and sales? Or is it a conspiracy to control us? Let's find out.
Alright. I'm not 100% sure about this one because I'm a big movie guy, and usually it's all marketing and how they're going to push the movie out and what they want the poster to look like. But anyway, we'll just go ahead and continue on.
Watching a video on YouTube of a real movie poster artist go over the reason why all movie posters are similar. And I started to wonder, is this all based on psychology and research, or is it a way to control our minds? The psychology of sales is no secret. All companies from McDonald's to Nike all have a marketing department set to make all the advertisements and pick the right color palette to use to attract more viewers. McDonald's has used yellow and red, which...
Of course, those are the signature colors.
My biggest question is, does the same go for movie posters? Is there some sort of higher power keeping us all in control? It's no secret that many movie posters have similarities.
Yeah, they're showing a poster of Captain America Civil War and Neighbors 2, which I think that it's just done on purpose because, they've done one thing and then they just want to copy the next one, so we'll go ahead and continue, but I'll probably pass this one if this one just kind of goes nowhere.
Watch this video, it made more sense after a while. Action movies use a lot of orange and blue because they are opposite on the color wheel. Therefore, they're more prone to noticing that particular design versus some generic advertisement. Indie films always use yellow in their designs, mostly because it's a psychological way to make their poster stand out for a cheaper price. Certain actors, such as Tom Cruise, are very easy to point out and easy to use their facial features to tell the story. That's why in a lot of Cruise movies, his face is the key piece of their design. With all the many conspiracies that are out there about the government controlling how we think and how we act, it's easy to say maybe they also have a hand in the way posters...
Yeah, this one's just kind of going nowhere. I mean, because really, it's all about, when it comes to movies like this, like when they showed the Captain America, a Civil War, and the Neighbors 2 poster doing the same kind of like face-to-face poses, I think that's just... They kind of just do that on purpose. It's kind of like a nice little homage to it, being like, hey, well... we're just going to spoof this. And, they were showing also some other posters of, like, Fantastic Four and, like, G.I. Joe. And, yeah, this one was just really going nowhere. So, next. Okay, I have found a really big doozy of one. Which, stuff like this keeps me up at night. This one, entitled... Every suicide ever in Hollywood was a murder? What if every single accident or suicide for a famous person is actually them getting killed from standing up to the elite pedophiles? I mean, when you think about it, every single person in Hollywood knows who the pedophiles are. That is true. Every single one of the elites that are out there had some connection with Jeffrey Epstein, and then his quote-unquote suicide happened in prison. Let's be real, folks. That was no suicide. That was murder. You can see. So once in a while, someone super famous died of a drug overdose or hanging themselves by a doorknob or even getting involved in a car crash for something so ironic. It's something that they do for a laugh, knowing that the rest of the world is completely clueless since they've gotten away with it for the last century. You really think Avicii, after making a music video about elite pedophiles, just decided to kill himself? Paul Walker decided to be involved in a car crash. Robin Williams gave up on life. Michael Jackson drug overdose when he was a victim. The Michael Jackson one, that holds some suspicion. Because whenever you read about his death, it's just like, even before that, during the This Is It concerts, he was on top of his game. He was ready to go with these 50 dates at the O2 Arena in London for his comeback show. And then, I know the actual cause was that he was overprescribed by the disgraced Dr. Conrad Murray, but it never leaves your mind that what if something or someone was actively trying to kill him? Like, who knows? People who are after him for the Beatles catalog, or all of the publishing, the millions he's gotten off of publishing catalogs and everything. This is like something like I've always researched. And also Robin Williams' death, and then Avicii. I didn't even know about the Avicii music video thing. I knew about his suicide, and it was very sad to hear, but no, I need to take a look at that song, and I'll probably follow up on the next podcast. You really believe not one person in Hollywood wouldn't stand up to all the elite pedophiles, even if they knew the consequences were death? There must be a tiny percentage of people in Hollywood that want justice, and every time they seek that, they die. That's why once in a while, one of our favorites is suicide, not because they chose it, but because they were one of us. Rest in peace to those who tried to fight the good fight. Yeah. And when we're looking through the comments, there's also conspiracy theory on Chester Bennington similar to this. I've heard this one with Chester Bennington as well as Chris Cornell. It's interesting to think, but in respect of his both of their families, it's just it's very tragic. It's really crazy when you get down to the nitty-gritty of what you don't really know, and especially in the entertainment industry, there's just so much goddamn scum out there just preying on people. It's just unbelievable. All right, the last one I'm going to be talking about is another Instagram post, something about Skinwalker Ranch. It's a photo, and there's a caption below, and I'm going to read it. Skinwalker Ranch is a plot of land located in Utah that is claimed to be one of the strangest places in the world. The ranch was dubbed the UFO Ranch due to the 50-year history of odd events said it had taken place there. Hundreds of paranormal events have been reported near the ranch, including UFO sightings, crop circles, vanishing and mutilated cattle, Bigfoot-like creatures, glowing orbs, telepathic messages, and poltergeist activity. All of that? Holy Jesus, this place is cursed. The ranch is in fact so famously mysterious that the National Institute for Discovery Science, owned by Las Vegas businessman and billionaire Bob Bigelow, purchased it solely for scientific research purposes. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. All right. That is something else. So you had all of that activity going on. I'm actually going to pause the music right here. Oh my goodness. All of this going on in this one spot. Wow. That is something else. And I think that is going to do it for this episode of the Plush Robot Podcast. And next week's podcast, I'm actually going to dive into this Skinwalker Ranch thing. I think that's going to be a great topic for next week. So anyway, guys, contact me at plushrobotpodcast@gmail.com. Send me questions or send me anything you like regarding the podcast. And also follow me on my personal Twitter at SpaceDragonZack. And also follow Plush Robot on Podbean and Spotify, and subscribe to the YouTube channel because I upload these episodes as soon as they go live. All right, guys, this is Zack, signing out. Peace.